Millionaire invited his ex to gloat. She revealed his hidden children instead. Welcome, everyone, to a story where pride and deception collide under the glimmering lights of high society. Our tale begins with a self-made millionaire who, blinded by vanity, orchestrates a grand event simply to flaunt his success in front of his former flame. All the carefully polished plans, though, unravel into chaos when she arrives with a secret that shatters his gilded illusions. Prepare yourself for high-stakes drama, unforeseen twists, and the sting of immediate karma. Sit back and delve into this cautionary saga of betrayal and redemption, reminding us all that secrets have a way of surfacing at the worst possible moment. Before we dive in, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. If you're excited about this story, let us know. If you enjoyed the video, press 1. If not, press O. Your feedback really inspires me to gather more uplifting and meaningful stories. Cassian Stone was the very portrait of nouveau riche achievement. Born to humble origins in a tiny town in Georgia, he pulled himself up by the bootstraps, beginning with a small real estate venture and, eventually, diversifying into commercial buildings and hospitality. Now in his late 30s, Kassian thrived on flaunting his status to everyone around him, and he was damn proud of it. So, when the time came to celebrate the completion of his latest high-profile development, the Grand Terrace condominiums in Beverly Hills, he decided not only to throw a lavish party at the famed Beverly Wilshire Hotel, but also to invite an eclectic mix of investors, fellow entrepreneurs, celebrities, and, peculiarly, an ex-girlfriend he hadn't seen in nearly 4 years. Her name was Jade Harrington. Jade had once been Cassian's closest confidant, supporting him emotionally while he navigated the early stages of his real estate career. They ended on rocky terms, words exchanged in anger that neither could forget. Yet, as Cassian planned this event, an idea took hold. What better way to prove he had won than to let Jade witness the spectacle of his success? In gold leaf envelopes embossed with Cassian's initials, the invitations were sent out. Jade's invitation glimmered no less brightly, stamped with an RSVP card that teased, "Your presence is requested for an unforgettable celebration of achievement." Unbeknownst to Cassian, Jade wore a conflicted smile when she received it. She had a secret she had carried for years, one that could level Cassian's world in an instant. The Beverly Wilshire Hotel's ballroom stood resplendent on the night of the event. Tall vases of fresh orchids and towering columns of champagne glasses turned the space into a shrine of opulence. Cassian made sure no expense was spared. He wanted everything perfect: his crisp midnight blue tuxedo, the shimmering gold decor, the endless supply of premium hors d'oeuvre. He also had a new fiancée, Dahlia poised elegantly on his arm. A renowned interior designer, Dahlia exuded sophistication and grace, the kind of woman Cassian believed matched his new stature. Indeed, Cassian seemed unstoppable. He possessed wealth, influence, and an adoring fiancée who dazzled every onlooker. Still, a simmering excitement coursed through him, fueled by a desire to relish Jade's reaction. He pictured Jade appearing, reminded of how she'd once shared his tiny apartment and ate takeout with him while he dreamed of big deals. In Cassian's mind, this night would be his final victory lap, showing Jade just how far beneath him she now was. But when Jade arrived, wearing an understated black dress, Cassian felt an unsettling twist in his gut. She didn't look intimidated or envious. She seemed composed, radiant even. He found himself startled by a quiet confidence in her eyes, like someone who had no regrets about the past. Dahlia greeted Jade politely, though Cassian noticed a flicker of concern across Dahlia's face. As if sensing the awkward tension, Cassian brushed it aside. Tonight was about him after all, and he intended to bask in that spotlight no matter who stood in the crowd. A string quartet serenaded the throng of high-profile guests, and a wave of low laughter and clinking glasses permeated the ballroom. Occasionally, a hush rippled through the crowd as waiters passed with trays of beluga caviar and glasses of Dom Perignon. Cassian meandered from one cluster of well-wishers to another, shaking hands and charming them with witty anecdotes about his business triumphs. Meanwhile, Jade stood near a marble pillar, her champagne flute untouched. She studied Cassian from afar, observing his forced laughs, his practiced gestures. She recalled a younger version of him, anxious and driven, sometimes unsure of himself. Now, that anxious glimmer was gone, replaced by a polished but brittle veneer. The memory made her heart twist. They had parted ways 4 years prior, amid a hailstorm of accusations and shattered dreams. Jade remembered how Cassian had insisted on focusing all his time on expanding his empire, leaving her behind in the dust. She'd tried to share crucial news, but he'd been too consumed by ambition to listen. In the intervening years, Jade had learned to stand on her own. No, she wasn't a millionaire, but she had built a stable, fulfilling life. Tonight, she hadn't come seeking revenge. She had come to face the man who was once the center of her universe, and possibly to gain closure. Yet, a part of her realized, if Cassian refused to accept his responsibilities once again, she would be left with no choice but to break the truth wide open in front of everyone. Feeling that triumphant surge, Cassian decided it was time to greet Jade personally, though in his mind, it was more like bestowing a gesture of magnanimity. Striding confidently, Dahlia in tow, he approached Jade, who set down her champagne flute and drew in a measured breath. "Jade," Cassian began smoothly, "you look surprisingly well." The patronizing tone made Dahlia shoot him a curious glance, but she stayed silent. "Thank you, Cassian," Jade replied, a polite smile curving her lips. "This is quite a gathering you have here." He shrugged, feigning humility. "Yes, well, one can't help but celebrate success, right?" With that, Cassian launched into a monologue about his multiple projects, the staggering sales in the grand terrace condominiums, and the upcoming expansions he had in the pipeline. He spoke as though reading off a press release, highlighting each grand achievement. Dahlia listened, offering small smiles and nods. Jade, however, remained unwavering, her gaze steady on him. At one point, Cassian smirked. "Remember our cramped little place in North Hollywood? How we made do with instant noodles and jammed furniture. Things have certainly changed." His voice lilted with satisfaction. Jade merely nodded. "Yes, they have." The focus in her eyes suggested she was about to say more, but the arrival of an investor, tugging on Cassian's sleeve, stole the moment. He shot Jade a look that said, "I'll be back," before drifting into a circle of men in tailored suits, leaving Dahlia and Jade briefly alone. Dahlia, ever the gracious fiancée, tried to break the ice. "So, Jade, Cassian mentioned you knew each other back in the day. You two must have a lot of memories." Her tone was genuinely curious, not catty. Jade's smile softened. "We do indeed. Sometimes it feels like another lifetime." She cast a glance toward Cassian, who was engrossed in conversation with a well-known talent agent. "It's wonderful to see how far he's come." A wisp of relief washed over Dahlia's expression. "He's worked hard. We both have," she said, a subtle note of pride in her voice. Jade nodded, reminding herself that Dahlia was not the enemy. "I'm sure you have. Congratulations on your engagement," Jade said kindly. "Thank you," Dahlia replied, relaxing a bit. She was about to say more, but Cassian's triumphant laugh pulled her attention away, and her eyes flickered with quiet concern. Jade picked up on it. Perhaps Dahlia sensed something off about Cassian's smugness too. Silence stretched between the two women. Jade wanted to confide in Dahlia, to reveal the heartbreak she'd endured, but it wasn't Dahlia's fault. If Jade was to speak her truth, she would tell Cassian first. After all, the weight of these hidden children deserved to fall squarely on his shoulders. The party reached a crescendo when Cassian tapped a spoon against his champagne flute. The quartet paused, and the soft hum of conversation died down as heads turned expectantly. Standing at the center of the grand ballroom, Cassian motioned for Dahlia to join him on the small stage near the head table. "Everyone," he said, voice booming through the microphone, "thank you for coming to celebrate the opening of the Grand Terrace condominiums. This project marks a milestone in my life, one that couldn't have been reached without your support." Applause rang out. Cassian signaled Dahlia to his side, and she smiled bashfully as he continued, "And, of course, I have to thank this amazing woman, my fiancée Dahlia Monroe, whose impeccable taste and unwavering encouragement have kept me motivated every step of the way." People applauded again, while Dahlia waved modestly. Then Cassian's tone grew more personal. "I also see a lot of old friends tonight, people who knew me when I was just an ambitious kid with big dreams. I appreciate that you've followed me on this journey, including some who have come back into my life after years apart." He locked eyes with Jade across the room, wearing an unreadable smirk. "Success tastes especially sweet when you can share it with those who doubted you once." An awkward chuckle rolled through certain corners of the room, and Jade felt her cheeks flush. Dahlia, from the corner of her eye, saw Jade stiffen. The instant jab had been clear. Cassian was subtly ridiculing Jade's past misgivings. Jade inhaled slowly, trying to suppress the sudden urge to fling her knowledge of his unclaimed children into the spotlight. "Here's to triumph," Cassian concluded with a flourish, raising his glass. "Now enjoy the night, everyone." As the crowd dispersed back into mingling, Jade found herself standing at a vantage point near a gilded balcony overlooking the ballroom. She watched Cassian and Dahlia greet more guests. Though Jade held her composure, each smug glance from Cassian fanned the anger in her chest. Unbidden memories flooded her mind. She and Cassian, working late nights, sharing cheap pizza, mapping out real estate deals on the back of receipts. How he would hold her close and tell her that, when success finally arrived, he would make sure they both reaped the rewards. Then, the day she found out she was pregnant, twice only to face his growing distance. She never managed to tell him, and within weeks, he'd left their shared apartment, chasing one business meeting after another. Soon enough, communication dissolved. Feeling abandoned and overwhelmed, Jade had returned to her hometown, raising the twins quietly, waiting for the right moment to speak up. Now, the right moment confronted her in this very ballroom. She couldn't let Cassian's arrogance continue while he evaded any knowledge of his responsibilities. Though she had wished for a private conversation, Cassian's condescending attitude was daring her to spill everything. Eventually, Cassian approached the balcony. Smug satisfaction gleamed in his eyes. "Enjoying the party, Jade?" he drawled. "I hope you don't find it too overwhelming, given our humble beginnings." A slow, mirthless smile spread across Jade's face. "Overwhelming? No. Impressive, perhaps. But I'm not sure you invited me here just to be kind." He shrugged, glancing below where guests swirled over the dance floor. "I see you haven't changed, always reading hidden meanings into everything. I thought it would be nice to catch up to show you that the world has a way of rewarding the determined." She leaned on the balcony rail, feigning nonchalance. "Yes, the determined and sometimes the reckless. Success doesn't always reflect character." Cassian's smirk faltered. "Is that supposed to be a dig at my integrity?" "Perhaps," she replied, tilting her head. "But we should be honest. You've changed, Cassian. You used to dream about building a life that made a difference, not just stacking millions." For a moment, Cassian's eyes flickered with something akin to regret. Then he banished the thought. "You're the one who left, Jade. Don't blame me for wanting more." She pursed her lips. "There's so much more I could say. So much you don't know. Your wanting more might have come with a bigger price tag than you realize." His brow furrowed, but before he could probe further, Dahlia called from below, beckoning him to greet some 6B investors. He exhaled sharply. "We'll finish this later," he said. Jade simply nodded, a quiet storm of resolve building inside her. Dahlia sensed a heaviness in the air whenever Cassian and Jade interacted. She tried to maintain a charming front, but the pit in her stomach grew more pronounced. At one point, as Cassian spoke about property expansions to an enthusiastically nodding hedge fund manager, Dahlia asked to be excused. She found Jade alone by a side table laden with mini desserts. "I thought I'd come say hi," Dahlia said, her voice low. "Cassian's a bit intense about these business events, isn't he?" Jade managed a polite laugh. "He sure is." Dahlia bit her lip. "Listen, I don't mean to intrude, but I want to make sure there's no misunderstanding between us. Cassian told me he invited you to show there were no hard feelings about the past." It sounded like she was reciting lines Cassian had fed her. Jade sighed, softening. "I hold no personal grudge against you, Dahlia. We've never had a problem." Her directness made Dahlia's face tighten. "But is there something else going on? I keep getting this strange vibe from the two of you. I don't want to be blindsided by any secrets." The sincerity of Dahlia's gaze almost broke Jade's composure. She gently placed a hand on Dahlia's arm. "The only secrets that exist are ones Cassian should have told you himself. Believe me when I say he owes you the truth, not me. But if he won't come clean, I may have to for the sake of people who deserve better." Dahlia's eyes flickered with apprehension, a silent question forming on her lips. Yet Jade offered no further explanation, turning away to keep her emotions in check. Dahlia stood in place, realizing that her fiancé might be hiding something monumental. A sense of dread coiled within her, overshadowing the glittery lights of the night. The evening wore on, and Cassian's broad grin never faltered as he showcased his achievements to one powerhouse attendee after another. Yet he noticed the tension in Dahlia's posture whenever Jade's name came up. He told himself Dahlia was just being cautious and that Jade could do nothing to upstage him. During the final segment of the evening, Cassian planned a celebratory reveal of projected profits for the Grand Terrace condominiums. A large LED screen stood behind the stage, ready to display charts, growth trajectories, and expansion plans. Cassian's publicist had set up the slideshow perfectly, ensuring that each statistic glimmered with promise. By now, the 100-strong gathering had clustered around the stage. A hush rippled through them as Cassian tapped the microphone again. "Friends," he declared, "tonight is not just about celebrating what's been done, but also about forecasting a future that's bright and boundless. Allow me to give you a glimpse of the next chapter in my journey." He gestured at the screen, which lit up with glamorous real estate videos. Cheers and applause rose from the crowd as Cassian flipped through bullet points detailing his success, global partnerships, projected revenue, cutting-edge development in the works. Each slide displayed staggering numbers and grand architectural visions. Jade stood near the edge, arms folded. She recognized that if Cassian was going to persist in bragging about his unstoppable ascent, she would have to be unstoppable as well. She wasn't here to sabotage him, but she also wouldn't allow him to stomp on the truth. She noticed Dahlia across the room, eyes flitting between Cassian and Jade, a growing anxiety in her expression. The moment was approaching. Jade inhaled, steadying herself. There was a place for theatrics, perhaps, but more than that, There was a moral imperative. Kassian needed to acknowledge the children he'd so willingly abandoned. And if he wouldn't, she would reveal them herself. Just as Kassian finished outlining a future project in Miami, Jade stepped forward. Her voice rang out, surprisingly clear in the mic's radius. "Kassian, forgive me for interrupting." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Cassian's eyes widened, but he tried to play it cool. "Jade," he said, forcing a cordial smile. "Do you have a question about the presentation?" Jade took a moment, scanning the sea of curious faces, Dahlia's most worried of all. "I do have a question," Jade replied evenly. "You talk about building a legacy, but what does legacy mean if you ignore the most fundamental responsibilities in your life?" "If I recall, legacy includes family, doesn't it?" People whispered, puzzled. Cassian tensed, the microphone squeaking slightly as he lowered it. "Let's not turn this into a personal matter," he said under his breath, though the microphone still picked up his words. But Jade refused to be hushed. "It's very personal, Cassian. For 4 years, I've stayed silent, but I won't stand here and let you pretend to be some paragon of success while denying the existence of your own children." Gasps pulsed through the crowd, one after another. Cassian's face turned a shade paler. Dahlia's eyes went round, and an audible hush fell over the entire ballroom, as if the air had been sucked out. Hands flew to mouths, murmurs escalated into hushed exclamations. In that electrified moment, Cassian felt the foundation of his carefully orchestrated image quake beneath him. He scrambled to maintain composure, his mind rushing to figure out how Jade could be referencing children. "What are you talking about?" he barked, trying to muster anger to hide his panic. "This is ridiculous. If you have something to say it clearly." Jade tilted her chin. "I tried telling you once, Cassian, when we still shared that cramped apartment in North Hollywood. You were caught up in your deals, chasing your dream. You never gave me a chance to finish. When I left, I was pregnant with twins." As if to confirm her words, Jade fished her phone from a small clutch purse, tapping the screen to reveal photos of 2 beaming children, a boy and a girl who looked uncannily like Kassian in their big, dark eyes and bright smiles. The crowd leaned forward, straining to see. Dahlia pressed a hand to her mouth, suddenly dizzy with shock. Cassian felt his stomach plummet. I didn't know," he stammered, voice taut. Every set of eyes in the room pinned him in place, and his veneer of invincibility cracked like a delicate porcelain mask. The hush turned suffocating. Jade's expression wavered between resolve and heartbreak. "I tried to tell you. You never listened, never asked, never cared. By the time I realized you were too wrapped up in your rising star, I decided it was easier to let you go and raise them alone." A wave of condemnation rippled through the gathered guests. Investors who'd seen Kassian as a golden goose began whispering to each other. Journalists among the crowd scribbled notes feverishly, salivating at the scandal blossoming before them. Dahlia looked like her entire world had shattered. Her fiancé had a secret that preceded their relationship, and he'd never bothered to find out or disclose it. The immediate karma struck Cassian like a hammer. He'd invited Jade to gloat, to flaunt how spectacularly his life had turned out. Instead, Jade had pulled the rug from under him, revealing that beneath his flashy accomplishments, he'd failed at the most basic measure of responsibility, acknowledging and caring for his own children. In the vacuum of silence, Cassian's parents, who had traveled in from out of state for the party, looked mortified. His father cleared his throat loudly, stepping forward as if to shield his son from the raging eyes of the onlookers. "Kassian, is this true?" he asked, voice trembling with anxiety and shame. Cassian's chest rose and fell rapidly, sweat collecting at his temples. She never told me. I didn't." She tried. Jade cut in softly. "You were too busy to hear me." The entire room waited for Cassian's reaction. He was a man who prided himself on controlling every narrative, every detail, every whisper. But this was beyond damage control. With each excruciating second, the condemnation in the air thickened. For the first time in a long while, Kassian felt small and powerless. Dahlia, tears brimming in her eyes, descended the stage. She confronted Cassian, voice shaking. "Is this real, Cassian? Did you really have children with Jade, and you never even knew?" He could only manage a shaky nod, heat flushing his cheeks. Jade and I fought. I left. I thought, well, I didn't think it ended with children." Dahlia felt her vision blur. This man she planned to marry had a gaping blind spot that involved human lives. "What else have you overlooked?" she whispered. "You've been so obsessed with success, maybe you forgot how to be a decent person." Before Cassian could speak, Jade approached Dahlia. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," she offered, genuine sympathy in her voice. But I couldn't watch him keep parading around as if nothing else mattered. Dahlia swallowed hard, uncertain whom to be angrier at. She settled on Cassian, the one who had done the ignoring. "Well, guess what, Cassian? You wanted a big spectacle tonight, and now you have one." Her bitter laugh stung Cassian more than any pointed accusation from the audience. Because Dahlia, his future wife, was now just as disillusioned as Jade had once been. The meltdown continued as members of the press snapped pictures, scribbling furiously. Social media inevitably exploded as some guests posted real-time updates. The hush of the crowd evolved into a swirling hum of disbelief and scandalous murmurs. Cassian's father tried to do damage control, speaking to a few of the major investors to reassure them. This personal bombshell wouldn't affect the profitability of his son's ventures. Yet the optics were terrible. A mega-rich man blindsided by fatherhood, accused of neglect. The story was sure to make headlines in the morning, overshadowing Cassian's big achievements. With his entire event overshadowed, Cassian's posture sank. For the first time in years, he faced a harsh truth. He had traded away love and family for an unending quest to prove himself. And now, on the very stage he built to celebrate his grand success, he stood vilified by the knowledge that he had abandoned what truly mattered. Jade stepped away from the center of attention, her heart pounding. This wasn't how she wanted it to go down. She had imagined a private conversation. But Cassian's arrogance had forced her hand. The relief of unburdening the secret mingled with a profound sadness at having to do it publicly. Quietly, Jade found a seat in the corner of the ballroom where the lights dimmed. She scrolled through her phone, gazing at pictures of her twins, Carmen and Caleb, 8 years old now. Both had Jade's inquisitive smile, but their eyes, that shape of their faces, were undeniably Cassian's. They had asked about their father from time to time, but Jade had never known how to explain his absence. In a moment of fleeting guilt, Jade wondered if she should have tried harder to reach Cassian. Then again, she had, and he'd brushed her aside. Now, the seeds he'd sown bore fruit in the form of scandal and heartbreak. Over by the stage, Cassian seemed locked in a shell-shocked daze, ignoring the polite attempts of a few guests who tried to cheer him up. Dahlia stood near the dessert table, arms folded, eyes brimming with emotion. She gave Jade a lingering look, perhaps wanting to speak further but not finding the resolve or the words. Jade simply dipped her head in acknowledgement. As for Cassian, the unveiling of his children was only the first bombshell. Soon, he would have to face the reality of what it meant to be a father. While he wrestled with shame, Jade felt something else quietly stirring within her, a hope that perhaps this cataclysmic moment might ultimately bring some semblance of accountability and maybe even a chance for her children to know their father. Soon the event disbanded into pockets of chaos. Some guests abruptly departed, not wanting to be part of a brewing public relations firestorm. Others lingered to watch the drama unfold, as though it were a live soap opera. Investment partners whispered about the ramifications of negative press. Cassian's parents were huddled in the corner, mother in tears, father red-faced with shame. Cassian, still in shock, followed Dahlia out into the hotel's corridor. The hush there was a mercy. She whirled around, tears streaking her cheeks. "I can't believe you never told me you might have left someone pregnant," she sobbed. His response was fraught with desperation. "I had no idea, Dahlia. None, I swear. Jade said she tried to tell me, but we were always fighting about time, about money, about me being distracted. It's not that I intentionally left them behind. I didn't know." She closed her eyes, hurt etched into her features. "You've built your entire life around being in control, Cassian. And now you admit you never even bothered to check in with Jade after your breakup? Not once in 4 years?" He had no rebuttal. His ambition had overshadowed the simplest acts of empathy and curiosity. He stared at the polished tiles under his shoes, hearing the muffled chatter from inside the ballroom. He had wanted Jade to see him at the pinnacle of success, but ironically, Jade's presence reminded everyone just how incomplete that success was. Amid the swirling exodus of guests, Cassian returned to the ballroom's edge to find Jade quietly collecting her purse and phone. Seeing him approach, she steeled herself. The expression on his face wasn't anger so much as resignation tinged with regret. "I never would have kept them from you if I thought you cared," Jade began, voice level but trembling with suppressed emotion. "Even after we ended, you were always in the headlines, bragging about your next big project. That's who you'd become." He swallowed, nodding. "I should have checked on you, reached out, done something. Instead, I got consumed by these deals. But, Jade, I want to make this right." She studied him carefully, uncertain whether his remorse was genuine or simply a reflex to control public perception. "If that's your intention, Cassian, then start by meeting them. Apologize to them, not just to me. Don't make more promises you won't keep." He hesitated, tears threatening. "Can we talk privately?" "I do want to know them, Jade. I need to know them. I might be late to the party, but I'm here now." A flicker of relief mingled with Jade's guarded skepticism. "We can talk. I'm not doing this for your ego. I'm doing this for Carmen and Caleb." She paused. "If you truly want to be their father, you'll prove it in actions, not words." In the final haze of the party, Cassian's illusions had crumbled. The glimmering banners heralding his real estate triumphs looked hollow amid the knowledge of his personal failings. Some staff busied themselves clearing half-eaten canopies, while the leftover champagne on glimmering trays felt painfully ironic. No one was in a celebratory mood anymore. Guests left in clusters, some pitying Cassian, others deriding him. Journalists pressed for statements, but Cassian's publicist fended them off, urging them to wait for an official announcement. Meanwhile, Jade and Dahlia shared a somber exchange of glances from across the room. Dahlia's face read heartbreak, yet Jade sensed a current of empathy. They were, in some sense, both unwitting participants in Cassian's refusal to face reality. As the overhead lights dimmed, Cassian approached Dahlia with a heavy heart. "I know this changes things," he said quietly. "I still want to marry you, Dahlia, but I understand if you need time." She pressed her lips together, tears still threatening to fall. "I do. I need to rethink everything," she admitted, stepping away from his reach. Jade slipped out through the large double doors, leaving Cassian to ponder the path forward. In her heart, she felt both liberated and uneasy. At least now, the father of her children could no longer hide behind ignorance. Whether he rose to the challenge or not would define the next chapter of his life, and the next chapter for those two children who deserved an engaged, responsible parent. And so, on the night Cassian Stone invited his ex to gloat over his immeasurable success, immediate karma swept in to humble him. The man who relished standing on a stage, boasting of building condominiums that stretched skyward, now had to reckon with building a relationship far more important, the one he had long neglected with his own family. Thank you for joining us on this intense journey of arrogance, secrecy, and the stunning downfall that followed. Cassian's story reminds us that success can be hollow if our personal responsibilities and moral obligations are left in the shadows. In seeking to prove his grandeur to his ex, he encountered immediate karma exposure of the very truth he'd so long ignored. Let this serve as a powerful lesson. Neglecting honest connections will always catch up with us, no matter how lofty our ambitions. If you found this drama-filled story captivating, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for more tales of shocking twists and surprising redemptions.